Number 1. The Clown Mask.
3 teenage boys were looking for a summer job. They were hired by a company and given the task of cleaning out an old warehouse. When they were working, one of the boys found an old red wooden box among the piles of rubbish. The teenagers gathered around the box, curious to see what was inside. When they opened it, they were disappointed. All they found inside the box was a clown mask. It was a grotesque mask with narrow, beady eyes, a bulbous red nose, and a large, crooked mouth. One of the boys picked up the mask and put it on. He immediately began to laugh and jump up and down. The other 2 boys chuckled at the display and clapped their hands. They watched as he danced around the warehouse, flailing his arms around like a crazy person. His laughter echoed around the old stone walls of the warehouse. He danced faster and faster, and finally, the 2 boys didn't find it so funny anymore. The masked boy was jerking and twisting his body into absurd shapes. His friends began to get worried that there was something wrong with him. He kept falling over and banging his head against the ground, whereupon he would immediately spring to his feet and resume the crazy dance. The boy was clawing at the mask, laughing like a madman. He looked like he was having some kind of seizure. His friends ran after him, and when they grabbed him, he fell to the floor and stopped moving. They ripped off the mask, and when they saw his face, they were horrified. The boy's face was twisted in an expression of terrible pain. Blood was flowing from his eyes, nose, and mouth. They immediately called an ambulance, but by the time they arrived, it was too late. The boy had died from his injuries. Number 2. The Clown Doll.
There was a 7-year-old girl named Molly who absolutely loved dolls. She collected every doll she could and displayed them on a shelf in her bedroom. She wasn't doing very well in school, so her parents told her that if her grades improved, they would buy her a new doll as a reward. Molly was motivated to try her best, and a few weeks later, her report card arrived from school. She had studied so hard that she managed to get straight A's. Her mother and father were delighted and decided to make good on their promise. The next morning, Molly's mother brought her to the mall so they could go shopping for her gift. As they passed the window of a second-hand toy store, the little girl grabbed her mother's arm and asked if they could go inside. When they entered the shop, the woman told her daughter she could choose any item she wanted, no matter what the price was. Molly wandered up and down the aisles of the dusty old toy shop until she eventually came to the doll section. On the top shelf, partially obscured by dusty old boxes, was something that immediately caught her eye. It was a clown doll with red hair, yellow eyes, and a big red nose. The clown's wizened face was twisted into a malicious grimace, and its teeth were sharp and jagged. One of the clown's gnarled hands was clenched in a fist, but the other was holding up 3 fingers. Molly turned to her mother and squealed, "Mommy, this is the one I want." "Are you sure?" asked her mother incredulously. "But it's so ugly and creepy." The little girl nodded excitedly. "I want it, I want it, I want it." "Well, all right then," said her mother as she took the clown doll down from the shelf and brought it over to the counter. The owner of the store took one look at the doll and said, "I'm sorry, madam, that clown doll is not for sale." "What? Why ever not?" exclaimed the surprised woman. The owner refused to answer. The mother looked down and saw her daughter's eyes welling up with tears. She began arguing with the shopkeeper and offered him more and more money, but he kept refusing. Eventually, she said, "I'll pay you $100, and held out the money in front of him. The owner's eyes grew wide. He hesitated for a moment, then grabbed the money greedily and said, "Okay, you can have it." He put the clown doll in a bag and gave it to the mother. As Molly and her mother walked out of the shop, the owner called out after them. "Just one thing," he said. "Never leave your daughter alone with that doll." The mother and daughter didn't pay any attention to him and left, happy with their purchase. When they got home, Molly immediately rushed into the living room. The girl was overjoyed with her present and spent the rest of the day playing happily with her clown doll while her mother watched television. As the little girl played with the doll, she wondered why it was holding up 3 fingers. Later that night, when Molly went to bed, she placed the doll on the top shelf in her bedroom. Her mother kissed her goodnight and shut the bedroom door. Bright and early the next morning, the mother was cooking breakfast and called out to Molly to wake her up. When she didn't receive an answer after calling her for the 3rd time, the mother began to get worried. She decided to go upstairs and get her daughter out of bed. When she walked into Molly's bedroom, she was horrified to find her daughter lying dead on the floor in a pool of blood. Her throat had been sliced open, and her eyes had been poked out. There was a sharp knife embedded in her chest. For a few moments, Molly's mother couldn't believe what she was seeing. But when she looked down and saw the clown doll sitting beside her daughter's mutilated body, she began screaming in horror. The clown doll was holding up 4 fingers. Number 3. The Clown at Midnight.
There was a man who wanted to hire a clown for his son's birthday party. He asked around at work, and one of his colleagues, Sergio Palma, gave him the number of a clown who, he said, came highly recommended. The man called the number and arranged for the clown to come over on Saturday and entertain the kids at the party. However, when Saturday came around, it was raining, and the clown did not show up. The children all grew bored of waiting and went home early. His son was terribly disappointed and ran upstairs to his bedroom in tears. The birthday party was completely ruined. The father kept calling the clown's number, but there was no answer. "Why did you recommend such an unreliable clown, Sergio?" he thought bitterly. That night, the man and his wife were lying in bed, exhausted. The party had been a disaster. He was still irritated that the clown had not shown up.
"What time did you tell him to come?"
His wife asked. I said very clearly, "Saturday at 12 o'clock, he replied.
"Maybe he thought it was 12 at night,"
said his wife. "A clown at midnight?" The man laughed out loud. Who would hire a clown to come to a birthday party at midnight? He turned over and drifted off to sleep. At midnight, they were awoken by a horrible scream. It sounded like their son.
"Something's wrong,"
whispered the mother, turning on the light. "Stay here," said the man, jumping out of bed. "I'll go check on him. Maybe he's just having a bad dream." He stepped into the hallway and immediately stopped in his tracks. There was a trail of muddy footprints on the floor. They were too large to belong to a normal man. The footprints looked like clown shoes. They led from the open window in the bathroom, down the hall, to his son's bedroom. A clown? Thought the horrified father. A clown at midnight? And then, without knowing why, he remembered something about Sergio Palma, his friend from work who had recommended the clown. Sergio had 2 sons, but one of them had died not too long ago, under mysterious circumstances. He had never discussed it with Sergio himself for obvious reasons, but rumors had spread around the office that after several days of intense searching, Sergio's son had been found dead in the woods. Why had he remembered this just now? With a shaking hand, the father reached out and opened his son's bedroom. The man let out an anguished howl and ran out of his house. His wife followed him. He started calling his son's name over and over again. The neighbors turned on the lights and came out to see what was wrong. "Someone has kidnapped my son," the man cried. "It was a clown." One of the neighbors called the police, and a few minutes later, several squad cars arrived. They immediately spread out and searched the area for the missing boy. Just then, the man received a phone call. It was his colleague, Sergio Palma. He was crying. Between babbles and sobs, Sergio tried to apologize for what he had done. "What did you do?" cried the father. "What did you do? Where is my son?" Who was the clown you told me to hire? I don't even know, Sergio whispered, his voice barely audible. I don't even know if he's human, but I know he is hungry. Always hungry. Hungry for more victims. He took my oldest son. Then last week, he came back for my youngest. I told him to take yours instead. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Tell my son I love him. Where is he? Screamed the man. Where is my son? Look in the forest, Sergio whimpered. He always nails the heads of his victims to the trees as a signal. What the hell do you mean by that? The man screamed. Before he could say another word, he heard the sound of a gunshot on the other end of the phone, and the line went dead. The father dropped the phone, ran out of the house. He went into the forest which stood behind the house. When he came to a big, gnarled oak tree, he suddenly stopped, sank to his knees, and began to cry uncontrollably. He had found what remained of his son. This is Mr.
and Mrs. Fright Nights.
I hope you enjoyed the video.
Please like and subscribe and give us some ideas in the comments below.
And remember, dusk is the monster's dawn.